Welcome to the CrossFit Canada podcast, a place for Canadian affiliate owners and coaches. And I have a fellow Canadian affiliate owner this time on the show, as we've had some international guests. Thom Wendelboe from Breaker Strength and Conditioning. That's right. Is that
Strength
correct?
and CrossFit.
Strength and CrossFit. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. So go ahead and introduce yourself. And I mean, you just said you're affiliate, but and we were just talking offline as we're recording this. The World Series is tied 2-2. So when this gets released, there will be a winner. So I know we talked offline, but you just got to say, as for your question of the day, will the Jays win or no? That'll be your call.
I think they'll win.
Okay.
I didn't think they were going to win after that one game went to 18 innings, and then they lost. I was like, oh, that's going to be. But then they won the next game, so I think because it's at home, I think they can do it. I mean, I have no idea. I don't follow baseball, but based on my understanding, they won that. They split in LA or whatever it was, and so now they have a chance. They just need to win both their home games, and they can win no matter what, which seems beneficial.
I will be in agreement with that. There was many that counted them out after the long game, but then they put their statement back on the map last night, again, as we're recording this. So when this gets released, we'll either be right or be eating our lunch. But yeah, go ahead and introduce yourself and your affiliate as well.
So I'm Thom. I'm in my affiliate's in North York, which is a part of Toronto, a little north, just barely south of 401. And I've been doing CrossFit since 2012. I've been coaching since 2000. Sorry, I've been doing CrossFit since 2011. I've been coaching CrossFit since 2012. I've owned my affiliate outright since 2019. And I've been coaching full time, I think, since 2015. I checked all this before we got on because I don't remember, but I went and checked. I have it written down, so I went and checked that. So I've been coaching CrossFit full time since 2015. I was coaching part time in 2012 to 2015.
Very cool. Yeah. And so I want to really dig into to what that journey's like. And especially even as you say, owning your affiliate outright. So clearly you've had partners and all that. And I know, from other discussions we've had offline that you're involved in some other things with programming and whatnot. So first, just, I'm one of my favorite stories from anyone is when did you first hear about CrossFit, and when was your first exposure to it way back in 2011?
So I had been heavier growing up until I think halfway through undergraduate university. And then I started working out on my own, kind of. Like I bought a weight set and I put it in my parents' basement and I worked out on that for a little bit. And then I went to the university gym and I did that for a little bit. And then when I started my graduate degree at the University of New Brunswick, I got into a little bit more, and someone showed me kind of some stuff, but he was a Japanese bench press kind of champion. I think he was a national champion of bench press in Japan. So I learned how to bench press, but not really anything else.
Okay.
I kind of stumbled through that for a little bit, and I started playing more recreational sports and getting a little bit fitter. And then when I moved to Ontario, the girl I was dating at the time started CrossFit in 2011. And she came back from her intro section and was just talking about the trainer. I guess she's he demonstrated a push-up and he had a tricep muscle I'd never seen before. And so I just went and signed up kind of the next day for the intro session. And that's kind of how I started with it. And then my first workout was a scaled version of half Cindy. So I was it was their intro class was it finished with half Cindy. So it was my scaled version. And I think I did strict pull-ups at the time. I'd gotten to the point where I could do some strict pull-ups, but it was pretty messy in terms of that. And it was back in 2011. So it was kind of a different time in terms of people doing CrossFit for the first time.
Yeah. A little less progressions and stimulus talk and all that.
Yeah.
It's hey, get it done as best you can.
Yeah.
When if you recall, so you said the intro sessions, were those one-on-one or were those groups? Because when
it was one group session, and then you just kind of signed up. And then I was a student, so the membership rate, and I was talking to someone else about this the other day, the membership rate was $85 or something. It was grandfathered in for life. So the entire time I was a member before I became a coach, but even my girlfriend at the time, her membership rate never changed. It was always $85. 3 or 4 years later, it was still $85 for that, which is kind of crazy just in terms of like the pricing thing is the lack of kind of not lack of, but just the difference in how businesses were ran.
Yeah. And I know you're a big like that. You put a lot of focus on it being a business as well as an affiliate in a CrossFit gym. So we'll discuss this as well. What did you take in university for your undergrad and all that?
My undergraduate degree was a double major in history and political science. And then my master's degree was in Canadian history. And then I did half a doctorate. I finished my comprehensive exams for a doctorate in history that I did not complete.
What was the initial vision there?
Of which?
Just like you know, you're now an entrepreneur, but
I see.
Yeah, like when you were originally going through your post-secondary journey, like what was your vision for your career path then?
So I did undergrad because I was kind of like felt like that's what you should do. And then I ended up just kind of picking history and political science because I liked it and I had a natural aptitude for both subjects. And then what I found out, there was not a ton you could do with that degree. Like there was no co-ops or work placements. And so I realized I either had to go to law school or graduate school. That was going to be easier. And I was able to win some grants for graduate school. So I took the LSAT and did well enough, but I ended up just going to graduate school because I wouldn't have to pay for it. And I would actually get paid a small amount of money to do it, enough to live off of. And so I did that. And then after that, like the natural progression is a doctorate. And for the doctorate, I'm not sure what it's like anymore. It was a long time ago now, but some people are able to make you can get paid a lot of money to go to grad school, at least a lot of money to someone who's younger and didn't grow up with as much. So I ended up making a lot of money going to do my doctorate. And then unfortunately, when the funding kind of run up, they give you a set amount of funding. And then as soon as it ran out, I kind of just abandoned my doctorate. But my goal was to teach university, to be a university professor. I kind of liked it. I had some professors that I really looked up to. And then what happened was I was coaching CrossFit and I was a TA, like TA is when you're the person who marks the exams and does a lot of the work. I was a TA for a period of time, but after I taught my first course, so I was called a sessional lecturer, I was in charge of the course and I was coaching CrossFit at the time. I had a much more higher reward coaching CrossFit than I did with the teaching. And so that kind of like steered me towards coaching CrossFit a little bit more, or at least staying in strength and conditioning more than it did teaching university. And so that was kind of like the impetus there.
So clearly like you were being pulled or drawn towards some version of like teaching or helping and, you know, passing along knowledge. But do you think it was more the like instantaneous feedback you were able to get in a CrossFit class to be able to like take them through that process?
So the turning point, there's a couple turning points, obviously, but if I wanted to make like the fancy book jacket cover version, the version that's kind of like cleaned up, I was doing someone's foundations because at some point we were doing foundations at the gym I was working at.
Sure.
And after like this lady I'd done foundations with, and I would start foundations being like, hey, why'd you come in here kind of thing. And she told me her goal was to play on the monkey bars with her kids. And I obviously forgot that. Like I wasn't writing it down. It wasn't my gym. I just was like, oh yeah, that's cool. And then I think 6 or 7 months later, she came up to me and she's like, Thom, I did it. And I was obviously had no idea. And I was like a young, dumb kid. And I was like, hey, what'd you do? And she's like, oh, I was able to do the monkey bars with my kids. When you told me, or when I came to foundations, you said that if I just came 4 or 5 times a week, I'd probably be able to do that. And I did it. And I realized that like that was a pretty solid impact on that person's life. At the same time, I wasn't like arguing. I didn't care that much about my sessional lecturing, but I was struggling with the concept that I was supposed to just pass people. Like they were like the universities are what they are. And I was just like, I was at the University of Waterloo. It was an engineering forward school. I had engineers taking my class kind of as a bird course, and I had to give them a certain grade. And so that was kind of frustrating. And at the same time, my doctoral research, or the research I was doing, was looking at nutritional policy following the Second World War. And what I found was that it had been heavily influenced by consumerism. And that influence in consumerism, and a bunch of people tried to resist it. And so I was reading these correspondence of people who had tried really hard to resist this. And then I just saw slowly the impact of like Kellogg's, for instance. So there's a dietitians committee, and their first ever meeting, they didn't let Kellogg's have a booth. And then a few years later, they let Kellogg's have a booth. And then a few years later, they let Kellogg's sponsor breakfast. And then I don't know if I don't remember how far it went, but I think they ended up like sponsoring the whole thing. And just that course of action, I realized that I was never probably going to have an actual impact on public policy that was meaningful. However, I had a meaningful impact in this one lady's life. And so maybe I wouldn't be able to get nutritional policy to be a little bit better, but I could probably do a little bit more micro level difference making. And so those two things were kind of the catalysts for the change.
Well, it sounds like you're a lot like me, like I'm very logical almost to a fault sometimes. Like, and it's just like, if something doesn't make sense to me, I just can't compute it from a logic standpoint. And it's like, that is the one thing that I've thought about this summer. It's like, you know, even every year we come up to the Open, it's like, I think I've always just stuck with CrossFit for almost 15 years now, because it's always just made sense. It always just is logical, and it's like there's nothing where I'm like, I don't get I don't get that. It's like, oh, this makes sense once I understand it.
Yeah. I mean, what's interesting is I didn't stick necessarily with CrossFit. I actually I started doing strength conditioning coaching with CrossFit. And then I started training some people in my garage before I started coaching CrossFit. And it was more traditional, very much based on CrossFit football, which I'm not sure if you remember, but it was like
Wendelboe.
Yeah, it was like a 5x5 progression with a workout after every day. So I guess strength and metcon. And I started using that for some friends who were like doing other stuff. And then I ended up outside of CrossFit at like a traditional strength and conditioning gym that worked with a lot of young hockey players and whatnot. And I was doing like a baseball strength and conditioning program for the facility I was at. Had a contract to do baseball strength and conditioning. So I ended up doing that for a while with like some kids. And then I was coaching competitive CrossFit athletes while doing that. And one of those competitive CrossFit athletes, I ended up coming back to CrossFit to work for. And so I have like a dip in the middle where I wasn't necessarily doing as much CrossFit, at least in the traditional sense. I was still using CrossFit principles, but it was very much in a more traditional environment. And I wasn't able to like make these kids do CrossFit because it wasn't my facility. And so I kind of adapted to that. And I also learned a lot doing that. So when I came back to CrossFit I was coaching around 2014. I was still coaching competitive athletes. It was before people I think CrossFit's always had some of this stuff, but people had forgotten about it. So a lot of my programming for competitive athletes had more accessory work that is way more common now. And looking back on it, I realized that people were kind of neglecting the gymnastics component of CrossFit. So people weren't starting with maybe that gymnastics base, but I was doing a lot of stuff that people do now. And I'm not saying I coached like a few people to regionals and semifinals and whatnot. I'm not like saying I had any impact on it, but just like because I brought some stuff, like just some, like even just some single leg stability stuff, even doing like, and I know CrossFit, I've like talked to a couple of seminar staff members, but even like using a glute ham machine to do glute ham raises was like having athletes do that made a really big difference in just kind of like after they worked out, hey, instead of doing this, just do some glute ham raises. So that sort of stuff I was doing. And then it was kind of neat because I could incorporate it back into kind of the CrossFit program I was doing. Anyways, and then I was coaching an athlete who owned, I think at the time he owned 3 gyms, and I ended up coaching for him full time. And that like brought me right back into CrossFit. And I haven't left since then, but it was like a little dip out of it and I came back to it.
Sure. Well, I mean, it sounds like, yeah, it's like, and I know you have currently your level 3 and in pursuit of your level 4, but I think that is one thing, like for me, that has been valuable about getting the level 3 is you're now responsible for continuing education hours. And a lot of those CEUs can come from outside of the CrossFit space. And you learn so much about the CrossFit methodology by just stepping outside and looking outside of the front yard, so to speak.
Yeah, I think it was also just rereading some of those articles. But like I mentioned, like especially when I started CrossFit, the way it kind of like it was spreading as almost a game of telephone. So some stuff wasn't always like the gym I started at didn't necessarily always convey some of the core principles in terms of like saying why they're important. And so I think that, and I still think to this day, a lot of the basic gymnastics components aren't taught. And so my self-selecting solution was to like include slightly different exercises. But I think that if people just do kind of like CrossFit with a lot of the body weight stuff and actually build their pyramid correctly, it makes a big difference. And then when I studied for my level 3, that was really useful for that. Like just going back to that stuff and playing around with some like the levers, even incorporating more SLIP practice into my own like kind of warm-ups and stuff like that really made a big difference in my ability. And then the other thing was when I was doing my graduate degree, my doctorate, I was at the University of Waterloo, and when I was there, a lot of the people I would train with, like in the university varsity weight room, I'd just work out down there. They were all like students of Stu McGill, who I'm not sure if you're familiar with, but very much not pro CrossFit. But it did rub off, like a lot of that stuff kind of rubbed off on me. And so there was like a disconnect there between some of the stuff CrossFit said and some of the stuff Stu McGill said. But like looking back on it, like for instance, the exercise I always tell people is the GHD sit-up, which I wasn't ever really opposed to, but I didn't understand how potent it was. And the Stu McGill teaching with the spinal flexion extension is not necessarily pro flexion extension. And so I never really did it. And I've had a couple back injuries. And what I've found is that if I do 150 to 200 GHD sit-ups, not necessarily for time, but good quality GHD sit-ups a week minimum, my back is like fine. Right. And so it's like one of those things. If I just started doing the GHD sit-up as it's taught in the level 1, I probably would have avoided some of those issues. And so what you were saying earlier about just, I came to that same conclusion, but it was like a very stubborn way to do it. Well, I did that zoom in thing. I never solved it. I came to a very stubborn way about it, but it almost made me believe in it more. Just because I've tried so many different things. And then when I finally saw some of the light for things like a GHD sit-up, I was like, oh, this works way better than some of the other stuff I had tried.
Well, and it's, because like, the analogy I'll use for new folks that join our gym at CrossFit Aurelia is I was like, CrossFit is like a Bible and CrossFit gyms are like churches. And, each church is free to deliver their own sermon based on the Bible. And some are a little bit more orthodox than others. And when I say like the Bible, it's like, hey, this stuff is in the scripture. It's there written, whether we choose to focus on it or not, and it's just, it sounds like you're almost in the same way. It's like, okay, I understand that these policies are written somewhere and I'm going to kind of go put them through my own experience filter. But if I keep coming back to them being like, okay, I see what they're writing about now, then you end up doing a more orthodox version of the methodology.
Yeah. And it works out well. I enjoy it. And but it was just, I don't know where I'm going with that. Just the journey there, I think, is interesting. I think because a lot of people I speak to now who are still with CrossFit kind of never really varied from it, but I do, and I still incorporate some of the stuff I took away from not being in CrossFit. But I think the CrossFit stuff itself, and like you said, I think the church analogy is very good. And I mean, I'm not sure the direction of the podcast, but I do agree it is a bit of an issue in this day and age, with just, there are so many different ways to interpret CrossFit, and the message of what CrossFit is very unclear. I think it's the biggest challenge to running an affiliate, is just like people either don't know what to expect, or they come in with expectations that you aren't necessarily able to meet. And I think that does create a bit of a problem, or a friction point, I think. And so just that I think it's like, that is one of the sort of issues. I'm not sure what your thoughts on that are.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I mean, I don't have a direction I want to go with it other than just a good conversation, but it's my philosophy. I've said it on here a bunch, but is like, the answers to the book, to the test, are in the book, whether it be the training methodology or even the business principles. Like, it's when you do start like trying to interpret them or take them for a different meaning or whatnot, then that's where things, or skew off to the side. But really, it's like the basics of the foundations and principles will guide you in what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And even that could be like from a programming standpoint of like strength plus metcon, or doing like part A, part B, part C. Like, it's not like those things haven't been around. It's not like, right, but it's just been a little bit more intentional, as opposed to sometimes now people just get caught up in just keeping everyone busy for an hour, right? So what are your thoughts there?
I think that's the biggest issue with I think that is the biggest issue in terms of branding, is just that keeping everyone busy. Exactly what you said. And it's a very nebulous conversation. And obviously, I'd probably put some thought into it. But I think the issue is exactly what you said. Gym's trying to keep people busy, especially now that there are so many boutique gym options that do keep people busy. And so just the education aspect is very challenging. And making sure, like, so for us, I follow a programming template that has days that aren't for time. And just even getting that sort of message across to people, or not for they aren't for score, but just getting that sort of message across to people that these days are important is a challenge. And I'm not saying I know best, but I do know a decent amount at this point in my life. And I do feel it's like that conversation is a conversation I'll never get to stop having. But because there's so many gyms that will kind of mimic that, they'll get rid of snatching, they'll get rid of muscle ups, they'll make everything 20 minutes long, or they'll include like a lift and then a 15-minute AMRAP that has nothing to do with the lift. It's an uphill battle sometimes. And that is something that I do wish there was a little bit better communicated. At the same time, I understand the benefit of the affiliate model. And I guess just in my experience, having done everything, and I've been writing CrossFit programming since 2012. Just having done everything, I know what is the most effective version of it for the most people. And just having to like kind of have conversations with people who either are members who've been doing CrossFit for like 2 years in 3 different gyms, or even like people who've been doing CrossFit since like, I don't know, 2019, and just being like, man, I used to program for dozens of gyms. We did strength and metcon every day. Some people got really strong. Nobody was that fit. Kind of thing. Right. And just like, because number go like, and just even, or we've done just days where you burn it down every single day, and nobody was able to sustain that as they aged. And especially because my gym, I've owned it outright since 2019, but it's been open for over a decade. And there's still some members who've been there for a decade. The one workout on most days is the way I like to phrase it, because we do strength and metcon sometimes.
Yeah.
One workout on most days is the most effective thing for people who are the average CrossFit client. And there's ways to give people more who want more. You just be like, hey, after class today, you're going to do 10 minutes more of this. You're going to do 10 minutes more of that. You're going to do 15 minutes more of that. Instead of cooling down with us, if you really want to get more, go into the back and do this second workout. And you can give people that, but still deliver a one workout of the day class, because it's the most beneficial to the most people, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I think exactly, like, there's almost that it becomes like someone's on like one side of the fence or the other, and you have to choose.
Yeah.
And I like how you're wording one workout most days, but it's just more, I think guys like you and I are on the same page. Like, if the workout is a 10-minute AMRAP of power cleans, lunges, and running, and the power cleans are meant to be a moderate to heavy weight, let's say 185 for the guys.
Yeah.
Well, guess what we might do for 8 minutes beforehand, because the other 2 movements are lower skill, is we might do, 5 sets of 5 power cleans.
Yeah.
Right.
No, yeah, exactly. And the beauty with that is, if you have a class of, I don't know, 15 people, and you have 5 people in that class who are RX athletes who've been doing CrossFit for 8 years, and you have people who it's like their first week, and you have people in the middle, you can just, if you're a competent coach, you can easily make every single person have value. It's like, okay, grab a pipe and a barbell. We're going to go through some progressions. You and you use a barbell, you and you use a pipe, you and you pick whatever you want. Right. And I'll let you know which is best for each progression. but you can pick what you want. And then you can start getting the experienced people putting weight on a little bit earlier. Hey guys, we're going to do 5 reps. I just want you to take a breath in. I'm looking for your back to be flat now. If you want to add some weight to your bar and you've been warming up with your bar, go ahead. If you haven't been adding any weight to your bar or you haven't used your bar yet, this is your time to use your bar. And there's a very easy way to take a class through. Not easy. That's the wrong word. There's a simple way to take the class through that. But I think the coaching acumen to be able to do that is hard. And just then communicating that to your membership is also challenging. Especially if they're used to scoring both components, right? And so that workout you provided, that's something we would do, but we wouldn't put a score to the first part.
Exactly. Right.
But there's still going to be people, and what we'll usually say is we're going to build up to a weight above the Metcon weight, and that's going to help you pick the right weight for the workout. And then there's maybe someone we have at like a scaled weight, and we make them just do 5 sets of 5 at their scaled weight, but we know for sure, or to the best of our ability, they're at their threshold for the workout. But all of that takes, I think what people don't understand is to do that effectively, it takes a lot of experience, and there aren't a lot of experienced CrossFit coaches out there. Like what we just described, I wouldn't have been able to do 5 or 6 years ago, right? At least well. And I understand why people put strength and Metcon into their programming or program strength and Metcon, because people will feel like they got their money's worth, even if it isn't what's best for them. But I guess for me, I'm not sure, and I have no idea what the solution is, but just getting more people to be able to run the class that we just outlined would really help everyone out, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I want to, because I think, honestly, I think the solution is just keep talking about it from a standpoint of not necessarily preaching it, but understanding that, we're again on the same page, is like, you can use less in a class to provide way more value to your members. And from a business standpoint, that's how you get people to stick around and to be healthy. So just for the sake of the discussion and the dialogue, you said there's not a lot of experienced CrossFitters.
CrossFit coaches.
Sorry. Thank you. Yeah. CrossFit coaches. Because there are, but how would we rephrase that potentially, like to start steering people in the right direction? Because someone could be, having done this for 12 years, but to your point is like, okay, there is an underlying subtext that we were talking about there.
I guess what I mean by that is, I think to be experienced at something, you need to do it for like a decade, or you need a certain amount of hours into it. Right. Yeah. And there aren't a lot of, like I said earlier, a lot of early CrossFit was like a game of telephone. And then you get these hot spots where there's some really good coaches coming out of it, but they're pockets, right? So you had CrossFit Re-Rock 1 that produced like most of the really, really, really good CrossFit coaches. And then those really, really, really good CrossFit coaches like dispersed a little bit and have a small network of really, really good CrossFit coaches. Or someone got on seminar staff, and then you have that experience. For most of us, that didn't exist. There wasn't any mentorship. We were kind of like the blind leading the blind. We were looking at things. We were looking at CrossFit. We were looking for outside of CrossFit, and we were kind of muddling it up a little bit. At least I was, and I'm not alone in this, just based on what I know. And as a result, there's people who've been doing it for a long time, but they haven't been getting a mentorship in a way that like produces quality coaching. And I think that is something that is like the affiliate model is both an amazing thing, and it also has a negative, and the negative is that. And I think the other thing is, and this is probably going to be a bit more of a hot take, I think that CrossFit didn't, I'm freaking zooming in again. To stop hitting
hey, for the hot take, that's like almost perfect.
Yeah, they almost great. Yeah, I think CrossFit didn't necessarily do a great job of disseminating those coaches to like have them just show, like be able to bring someone in and make it easy to bring someone in. Because the other thing is, a lot of the seminar staff members I know are really great coaches, obviously, but they also are almost in a seminar staff bubble. where they talk to each other and they're like, hey, we're getting better at coaching. And all the coaches at my gym are great. And all the coaches at my buddy's gym are great. But then if you've never been on seminar staff or been close to someone on seminar staff, that creates an issue. So for instance, there's a bunch of really good CrossFit gyms in Ottawa, but like PT ran a gym that produced like he ended up on seminar staff getting feedback from those people from CrossFit level 1. Like he's still very close with Austin. Right. And then that like kind of coaching tree goes down and disseminates. But what I found is it didn't necessarily translate to other parts of Canada. And I'm assuming it's kind of similar in the rest of the country, because in my opinion, the best way to develop CrossFit coaches or the way is it on the spot feedback, right? Like either in class or directly, like if someone's coaching like a 6:30 to 7:30 and then they're coaching an 8:30 to 9:30 and there's an hour break in your schedule, that's the best time to develop your coach. But because there wasn't the ability for that, it led to coaches who were maybe they have lots of practice coaching, but it wasn't focused practice, if you're familiar with that term. There was a lot of coaching that was not focused practice. It was like, I want to learn how to play hockey. I'm just going to go out on a sheet of ice and beat and hit a puck around a little bit with no one telling me what to do. And I might get decent at it, but I'm going to develop a lot of bad habits in the meantime. And so I think that's the other thing is like, I have a lot of bad coaching habits and I'm not the only one. And I know people, and a lot of those habits are just from kind of learning on your own. It's like if you teach yourself to golf and you got a hitch in your swing and is what it is. Same thing. We all taught ourselves how to weightlift, right? Back in 2011, 2012, everyone's best clean was a hang power clean because they would just bang it off their legs and catch it. Right. And then we all learned, oh, that's not how you do that. And then you see people who've been taught to weightlift with a little bit more instruction and they're lifting a little bit smoother kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah. It's because like there's the implied responsibility to go from one level to the next that maybe isn't communicated as well as it should be. Or the interesting part is there's almost like contrasting opinions. The affiliate model, because Greg being libertarian, is like the affiliate model is you can run your business exactly how you want. Just don't, do any damage to the brand. We're not going to tell you what to do, how to program, anything like that. Right. Then they have the level. Then all you need is your level 1. Boom. There's your entry. But when you have a level 2, a 3, and a 4, there's an implied element of continuing down the path. It's like, well, we made a path from 1 to 4. Yeah. We just expected you to go down it.
Yeah.
And a few folks are, well, statistically way more than not, right? We can say, we're like, yeah, but I like it here.
Yeah.
On this part of the path. And for CrossFit to say like, and actually they actually just did 2 years ago was, no, you actually have to now have your level 2. Mm-hmm. And if there's a point where they say, your licensee of record or your designated trainer has to soon have their level 3, you might have some people like pushing back, being like, well, you don't tell me what to do. But there's a certain element of implied like learning that happens because I didn't really start understanding and obviously it's a hyperbole a little bit, but it wasn't until failing the level 4 for me where I was like, and then starting a mentorship where I'm like, oh, this is what coaching is.
Yeah. And I guess I have the same journey where I started a mentorship and I was like, oh, I could be way better at this. And the other thing is, if you're above average at it, like people would tell me they'd drop in from other gyms and be like, that was such a good class. I learned so much. So, and I didn't have any feedback being like, hey, you don't know what you're talking about, because like the average is so a little bit lower. And then the top is so far up. And then a bunch of us are just existing in that middle ground, but we're so far away from that top with that mentorship. Like I learned more doing a mentorship and I did a year-long mentorship more or less. And I learned more in that period than I've ever learned coaching. And I'm like the betterness I got, or betterness doesn't work. My ability to coach, it was like pulling teeth for a little bit. Like I really struggled when I started having to relearn how to coach because I had to do it in real time and I had to kind of relearn how to do it a little bit. and so that was tricky because of coaching classes of 15 people, and it's just not going well because you're trying to do this a little bit differently. And now it goes well, but it took like a couple of years of like really hard like discussions with myself essentially, and really focusing on certain things and just really pushing through that. And I guess like that mentorship, and it was still hard because it was like a weekly or every other week. And the frustrating part to me is like, if I had just had that, if I had no one to look for that at the start, it would have made such a big difference in where I'm at as a coach now. It's like, hey, you should go to NCR and see if you can just be there for a month. Right. When I was a grad student doing nothing, it's like, hey, that's a great idea. But like never crossed my mind. No one put that in my head. Right.
100%. Yeah. I started lesson planning in like 2019, and I've actually in binders, I've saved them all. And I probably from 2019 to now, I've probably coached 200 days a year, maybe more. And I did my level 4 in December 2023. So it'd be coming up on 2 years ago. And in my feedback was like, participants should develop a teaching plan for the wall ball.
Yeah.
And it's like, I've been coaching full time at this point now for 5-6 years, lesson planning every day I coach. And to get feedback of like, I need to have a plan to teach. It's like, it's this like hit in the gut. But again, back to the scripture of everything exists in CrossFit to have a definition so we can make sure we're talking about the same things.
Yeah.
Right. And what I thought was teaching wasn't actually what was in the scripture of teaching by a definition standpoint.
Yeah. And I think that's really important too. And then I guess it goes on to the topic of hiring is very challenging. Okay. Just because exactly what you said. And this is what I tell my coaches now. I'm like, we don't necessarily have to agree personally with how CrossFit teaches an air squat, even though I think it teaches it correctly. But we all need to teach it that way so we're all on the same page. But what happens is you have a level 1 or a level 2 coach show up to interview, and you're like, hey, give me the 5 points performance plus the setup of an air squat. Yeah. And they can't do it off the top of their head. Any other job where you have like a professional designation, like the equivalent of a CFL2, you have to pass a competency part of your kind of like job interview. Like my wife is environmental scientist. She works with a complicated piece of software called GIS, which allows you to make maps. The first time she interviewed for her job, she had to like show knowledge that she knew how to make a map. But if you ask a lot of people, they come into interview and you're like, hey, go teach those 2 people how to do a push jerk. Yeah. They're going to panic. Right. Or they're going to not do a good job of it, or it's going to be, and that's like, to me, I think that's kind of what I was getting at is that it's kind of like the issue is you can't just, like when I meant lack of coaches is like, you can't, it's hard to hire. You have to usually bring your staff up from within. And all of that is kind of like a bigger problem. And I don't know the answer or the solution or anything to it, but it is just kind of the issue I have, as someone who does coaches or owns a CrossFit affiliate.
Yeah. Cause you want to, it's like a reverse currency of time, meaning like we as owners are trying to get some time back in our day so we can work either on our business or just not 60 hours like maybe we all did at the start. So you're like, okay, I'm going to throw a coach in there. And then you could be either participating in their class or just observing it or listening to it. And you're like, oh man, they're messing that up. And people won't notice, but then all of a sudden, maybe you do get some feedback from members. And then you're like, okay, now the hard part is finding a coach is hard enough. Now I potentially either have to dedicate some investment into this coach or have the hard conversation of like, they just weren't ready, when really that was my fault for putting you in too soon. Exactly.
But if you have someone, because I live in an area where I could probably put an ad up and get a few applicants.
Yeah.
But if someone applies to a job, they expect to coach right away and be like, yo, you have your level 2 and you've been coaching CrossFit for a decade, but you can't coach a push jerk to 15 people in a way that teaches every single point of performance. Yeah. So it's like, how do you explain to that person that it's hard to bring someone in because no one wants to start with an internship. And in my experience, that's where you have to start most people off. And we've tried to not do it, and it never ends super well. If someone has that. And so just like that's kind of that's kind of what I was talking about when I was taking experience. It's just a matter of like, it's really hard to bring someone in and be like, hey, you're going to start your job, you're going to start shadowing for a week. But for most people, it takes more than a week to get comfortable coaching. In my experience, maybe you've had different experience hiring coaches. We actually have someone coming in. We've changed up we have a level 3 CrossFit coach interviewed. We've changed up our process as a response to this. And so he came in on Tuesday. He just took one of my classes just to see if he liked the vibe. Because that's the other thing, set expectations. It's like, it was a heavy day. I brought him purposefully in for a heavy day. Deadlift 1 rep max. That's all we did that day. I think there was a 5-minute accessory thing at the end, but it was like a deadlift 1 rep max. It was like the 5-minute accessory thing was like 10 dumbbell deadlifts and a 15-second L sit. So it was a deadlift. And so just, he liked that. He loved it, he said. Maybe he was just being good at being interviewed. And then now he's going to come in Saturday morning, and my head coach and I are going to sit and evaluate him while he coaches 6 people in a class, like a fake class, like not a fake class, but just like an hour-long class where I have my other coaches and a couple members coming in to take class. And then that's how we're doing it now. We'll see how that goes. Curious. I'm really I'm intrigued by this because, one, he has a level 3, and we're just making him, like, his job interview is that hour-long coaching session.
What's interesting that I'm picking up on that I want the listeners to is that you are an experienced CrossFit coach and affiliate owner, but you're saying we'll see, meaning you're willing to take a chance on a new process. And know that, like, hey, I don't know really what my outcome is going to be, but I have an idea. And I think that's something that does come with experience that maybe few are a little fearful to do, is to make a mistake or attempt a new process without knowing.
Well, I mean, the processes always are just a response to a mistake, right? Okay. Like, it's not like I came up with this idea first. This idea is a result of a bunch of failed ideas. Same with like my programming. It's a bunch of failed ideas. Same with our class structure. Even our class sizes are different. Like, we've tried around with everything, even like kind of how many members we target as an affiliate, right? Like, our membership's been all over. And I've like tried different sets out, and I have what I like. I'd like a small affiliate with 150 people and classes of 12 to 14 people. That's what brings me the most joy, but it's not necessarily what I need. And then it's like, what made me the most money was 230 people, 240 people, 20 to 24 person classes, every single class. But that was not, at the time anyways, that wasn't bringing me nearly as much joy as I get with the smaller affiliate. But just trying both those things out, right? Like, really pumping people into the gym, putting them into class, pumping these big classes, pulling back on bringing people in, making it so, hey, we can tighten this up a little bit, and just manipulating that a little bit and trying to find that. But I think it's important to do all of that and kind of know what you like. And then it's always a negotiation. Like, if it was up to me, I would have 12-person classes. I would know every single person. I would coach the majority of the classes. I would like know everything about those people. And I would have like 80 people who were like really, really good CrossFitters as average people. But obviously that doesn't, I think that you can do it.
Sure.
I just don't think I can do it in one of the higher cost of living places in the in the world, right? Like, I know people who you can have a small affiliate. And that goes back to what we said earlier, though, just as a tangent, like CrossFit itself started out severely underpriced.
Sure.
And people have a mindset that it should cost X amount of dollars. The biggest lesson I think all of these other offerings took from us is to start with a high price. Right. I just found out, like, there's a Pilates studio near me that charges $50 a drop-in. And people happily pay it because that's the cost of Pilates. Whereas I've just upped my drop-in price to $40, and people are like, what the heck, man? When I go to CrossFit in my hometown, it costs me $20. I buy a t-shirt and they let me drop in, kind of thing.
Well, and you like, there's an element of the value that's being brought that you can't say to be like, well, here's why we're more expensive because your gym back home is this, but like for us, you know, I'm really thankful we have, including myself, we have 5 level 3s on our staff, and there are some people, depending on how they pick their classes, that only get coached by level 3s.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a value proposition that doesn't exist in other affiliates. So when people are wondering like why it costs a certain amount, but and then at the same time, it's like understanding that like I have to pay all these coaches more as well. So the operating cost goes up as these people get better as well.
Yeah, I guess my kind of like point in general was also that like F45 is charging significantly more than I am for, in my opinion, a worse experience.
Yeah.
But if I was to charge F45 prices, it would be very challenging for me to attract as many members as I have. And just because some people expect CrossFit still to cost a certain amount. And that's just what I was talking to a buddy. I did a High Rocks a few weeks ago, and my buddy did a High Rocks, my former business partner actually. And we were talking about it. And he started with doing CrossFit main site into like 2009. And he still owns one affiliate, or he's still part owner of one affiliate. But like he's seen more than I have at this point. And we were talking about how expensive High Rocks is. Like doing a 1 hour workout is like $400 for 2 people. But like if you try and do a CrossFit competition, like no one's paying $400 for a CrossFit competition because CrossFit competitions have never cost $400, right? And I remember a couple of years ago, I'm not sure what it's like now, but a couple of years ago, Bros and Does raised their prices. And it wasn't as expensive as a High Rocks for that partner competition. But people were very upset because it never used to cost that much. And it's at the Bros and Does is at the same space as the High Rocks is. They're at the exact same space. Yeah. And there's pluses and minuses to both. Like, I'm not going to say that the Bros and Does is a better experience than High Rocks, or High Rocks is a better experience than Bros and Does. But the disconnect in pricing is a bit of an issue just because there is like an undercurrent. It just takes a couple people to be like, it should cost less. And then even new people who have no idea are like, hey, yeah, it should cost less. And so that's just my experience. I'm sure it's not universal, but that's just something I noticed with the High Rocks when my buddy and I were talking about how expensive it was versus what we used to pay to do CrossFit competitions.
Yeah.
But nobody knew what they were doing. And it created that sort of issue. Like my gym's priced lower on the lower end, but I mean, I price it based on all of my costs, including space. And we are in like we're in an industrial area, and my lease is a little bit less. So I don't need to like jack my prices up super, super high, but they are expensive. But just that like kind of cost thing is back to what I was talking about with the class sizes. Like, I think the best version of CrossFit is a smaller class, smaller group, and people should be paying more for it. But that's a hard sell, at least in my experience. Because like, if we remember how CrossFit started, it started with Greg teaching one person, and then teaching 2 people, and then teaching 3 people slowly over time, and then never going that big. Like, those classes at the original affiliate weren't very large, and people were paying a lot for them. But it is, And so, but like getting back to that is a challenge. Like it's, I don't know if we can put that back in the bag.
Well, but what I'm hearing from you is experience and value to your member seems to be a guiding principle for you.
Yeah.
Right. Is like someone could have a 20 and 30 person class and
we were doing it. We did it for a bit. It was hard. Like, it was hard to coach. I didn't always look forward to coaching. Like, you can coach 20 people sometimes, but doing 2 or 3 back-to-back 20-person classes was, and then we have a 4,500 square foot all-inclusive space. So it's small.
Yeah.
We tried 2 12-person classes with 2 coaches at the same time. It was just too loud. It was too loud. Right. We tried 2 coaches on the floor. None of it worked nearly as well as like 12 to 14 to 12 to 16 people with 1 coach, at least in my experience. And there's probably ways around it. I know Nicole Christensen at Roots, I watched it when I did my level 4 there. they have a bigger space. It's split up nicely. They run two classes per slot, sometimes with 12-person class with 2 coaches. It works well because they have a little bit more space. We tried.
Were you at their space that they're at now?
Yeah, their new space. Yeah,
they're at their new space. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It worked super well. They had 2, like, not quite mirrored, but the space was just big enough. Whereas for us, I'd have to like start really getting finagly with the programming, no matter how we reorganize the space. Getting 24 people into 4,500 square feet that includes bathrooms, change rooms, showers, front desk area was like, just even if we changed the workouts, and I think I saw a post from you about that. Our members don't like that. It especially our busy classes, our classes where people just don't appreciate that. Like they want to do the workout as written, and that's fine. And it's always been part of our culture. We have a few more, they're older now, but some people who were competitive at one point in their life, and they wouldn't complain, but they wouldn't be as happy.
Right.
Just, hey, the workout's not the version. I don't want to do a partner workout. I came in, I wanted to do Fran today. I don't want to do partner Fran.
Right. Well, and there's a certain element of geographical cultureness there too, right? Like, you know, the city is a little bit different than Aurelia and whatnot. But carry on there.
Yeah. Even every so often we'll do like pirate rules on the machines. And even that, like, I can see some people are like not happy about it. Like, if you're not, for pirate rules is where you just have your machines out. It's first come, first serve. You might have to wait a little bit. You can write workouts that works really well with, but some people really want to have their machine for the day. They don't want like the anxiety. I just see the anxiety spike up with some people when you're like, hey, you're going to have to fight for your machine. It's like, but I get that. I understand where if it's baked into your culture, it works. But just as I was saying, as we've tried everything, and for us, the 16-ish is about where I think we still are capped at 20, but we've just spread some people out a little bit. And like I said, keeping the membership down just a little bit by doing a little bit less lead generating has created a situation where it's I'm enjoying coaching a lot.
And that's the key, right? Is finding something that guides you towards a version that you want, that fulfills you, right? Our classes are interesting. Like 6 a.m. we'll have 18 to 24 people in it, but then 5:30 p.m. we'll have 8 people in it. Yeah. And so it's like, well, how do I solve this problem? And just recently, so we follow CAP. And in our coaches, the CAP gives very comprehensive coaches notes, but I just started putting in like big class logistics. Yeah. And like, hey, here's how we might modify the workouts. And our culture is different, where people are like, oh, this is great. You know, I love it. And being willing to experiment, as you said, with 2 different classes, or
just trying a bunch of stuff,
is you just have to try things and then have a filter to run them through to say, like, what does success look like for me and my business? Yeah.
No, exactly. And like I might bring I think there's a way we could do the 2-person classes. I think there's a way we could do it in our facility. We also, my coaching staff is now a little bit more experienced. It's less necessary. Like, I can coach a single 20-person class without being wiped out. I can coach 2 if I have to. I can coach probably not 3. Like, I think that anyone who says they can coach 3 straight hours and coach over 60 people I want to see a video of all 3 hours. Right. And I'm not trying to be a dick about it. I just know that I'm pretty experienced at coaching CrossFit. And I know that even right now, if I do we have 3 evening classes back to back, one's usually kind of full and the other 2 are like hit or miss. And it's always random which is which. But I know that if I get that 7:30 class, the last one ends up being the 14, 16, 20-person class, that's like hard. Versus if it's like it's best when it's like the middle one, right? You get like an easy class, you get like a really busy class where you're already hyped up, and then you get the less busy class to finish. But
you get to like make the mistakes in the first class. Yeah. And then like you got your lesson plan dialed in for that second group. And if they bring the energy, you're like, okay, this is great. But then you try to dial it in for that third one. It's like, oh man, I don't have much in the tank. Yeah.
No. So, but I think affiliate owners should figure out what you said, like exactly what you said, and they should figure out what works for them. And what works for me doesn't work for everyone else. But just to get back to it, I do think that I'm not sure how to solve the problem, but I do think that educating people about what CrossFit is before they come into a CrossFit affiliate and educating people, it would be beneficial in my experience. Just
Well, but I think one of the underlying principles, and it's interesting that it's come out more in like the marketing and the social media, is standards. And
yeah,
when I think, the saying, the standard is the standard. And I know Nicole at Roots is a big proponent of that. Sometimes I think we take it a little too much at face value for movement standards, which is the kind of in the face context of it. But from us as affiliate owners, our standards go deeper to like, what is our standard of coaching? Mm-hmm. What is our standard of what we offer our members? What is our standard that we have for ourselves in our business, and how much we do or don't work and do or don't get paid?
Yeah.
And those standards are what need to be help make these decisions that we, the reason I think you and I are both able to like nerd out over it is we have a version of that. And I think there's some folks who haven't really given that a thought about like what kind of standards I have.
Yeah. And they haven't sat down. And like, I've been fortunate. I've had business mentorship. I've had coaching mentorship. And even if I don't always agree with everything, you take something away from everything. And I think that's been very helpful. And I've had like a bunch of different stuff like that. And I like the version of me even 2 years ago, even a year ago, was so much different than the version I am now. So I assume that like everything's going to be, I'll have probably completely different takes a year from now, right? Just completely different feelings on everything.
Well, and is that part of what keeps you like excited as both an entrepreneur and a CrossFit coach? Like is the journey?
I mean, right now, I guess like I'm not at a lull, but like I've never really wanted to be, because you talk about entrepreneurship, I've never really wanted to be an entrepreneur. And that's still like, I would say that's still my biggest struggle, is just dealing with that. Like in my perfect world, there'd be a gym. I write programming for that gym. I coach 3 classes a day. I work out. Maybe I go home and I do something else, but I do the entrepreneurship stuff so I can coach. That's how I look at it. And I'm still waiting for someone to offer me 6 figures just to coach at their gym 3 hours a day, 5 days a week, and just give them some stick programming.
Yeah.
So
for the tens of people listening, Thom is for hire.
Yeah, I am for hire. And I think Matt has he can send you a class I coach. So if you want to see,
right.
Yeah.
If you want to do a job interview and over the screen interview.
Yeah.
No, but it is a necessity. And was there a time where you were running your affiliate and still having a full-time job, or have you been okay? No. So you've only ever been a full-time.
Yeah, and I've never really had a real job. That's the other thing. Like, and it's like I don't know if I could do that. And I think we all get to the point where I'm like, man, a real job would be nice. But because I've never had it, it's almost, I'm not like, at this point, I'm not really qualified to do anything else. Like I was talking to my wife this morning, there's nothing I can do that's going to allow me to pay the mortgage on our house in the GTA as a full-time job at this point. But I've never had one. So sometimes, because she has a full-time job, like she'll leave her work at her work. She just got a new job. So it's a little bit more busy in her brain, but I do see like I can never 100% turn my brain off. And there's been times where the gym's been like flowing really well and I haven't had to do anything. There's been times where I've had to do too much, and those times I think it's always going to be up and down, but I've never had a real job. Grad student to entrepreneur, they're very similar. Self-motivated, lots of problem solving, and I don't mind it. What really makes me happy is coaching. And I know some people coach because they like to own an affiliate. I own an affiliate because I like to coach. And like I said, I started with business. I never wanted I'm not saying I never wanted this like dramatically, but it was never like the affiliate thing kind of just happened by a circumstance. But it was never like my big design. I always just wanted to coach CrossFit.
Have you ever read the E-Myth Revisited?
No, but I've read a summary of it. I've listened to a podcast where people talk about it.
I mean, that's basically it.
Yeah.
But no, because that's what it is, right? And it's interesting that you have the self-awareness to just say, like, no, I mean, this is a means to an end for me to like just to coach more, and I would love to coach more, but you still know that there are business things that need to happen. And being an entrepreneur that's what's interesting about like doing fitness and CrossFit. Like, workouts never get easier. There are days that are lower intensity, but they don't get easy. And entrepreneurship is the same thing.
Way.
It's like we want it, because we want some version of like low intensity in our life, and it just isn't the case there.
No. But I think I just think it's interesting. I don't know if you talk to a lot of affiliate owners I know don't coach anymore. Right. And there's nothing wrong with that, but they love running a business. Right. And they're good at running a business. Whereas I stumble through running a business, so I can stumble through coaching a little bit less. And the stumbling while I'm coaching is a little bit less of a stumble than when I'm trying to like look at my profit and loss statement, or even like just dealing with staff politics or anything. All that stuff is stuff that I know people who get fired up about both those things. And they're not the same people, but they get like fired up about the numbers. Whereas like I have a system for the numbers that works because we're profitable and I make enough money to do everything I need to do. But I would never give my system to someone else. But I know people who I could like have amazing systems. Same thing. I know people who love just schmoozing with their staff, getting their members fired up, being leaders. Like, I'm not a leader. I'm not going to pretend I'm a leader. I'm just a guy, and I coach, and I have some other people who coach for me. Same thing. But I understand that I have to kind of do both those things to be able to do the one thing I want to do.
And that's what makes this like, I've never really thought about it this until now. It's affiliate ownership is a Rubik's cube. But it's a Rubik's cube that it doesn't all have the same colors that we're all trying to get to the same like organization of. Rather, quite the opposite is like, we each have our own completed version that's been like twisted all up, and now we're trying to figure out what is the formula to spin it around. Because I've gone through like trying to coach less, and I have seen that, and I've done some business development like with other gyms, and to do this thing and then to like want to like pull away and not coach at all, it's like that's not necessarily the goal. And should always want to like be good at the thing so that you can again uphold those standards that you're setting. But it's just a matter of being able to do it and have fun with it.
Yeah, and it's also just not enough hours in the day. Like if I'm coaching, I've gone down to coaching, I think 4 hours a week. And that was like when we had a lot of members, because I was able to do the other stuff, but I was not happy coaching 4 to 6 hours a week. Right now we have someone coming in on Saturday, so but right now I'm coaching too much. Like, I'll admit that I'm coaching as much as a full-time coach would coach. And so that's too many hours, but like we have someone coming in. And so, but finding that balance is hard too. Like, cause like I want to coach more, but I can't coach more. But when I'm coaching, that's when I feel most at peace as well. Like when I'm coaching a class is when I think I'm most like feel like myself. Like if I'm trying to do a spreadsheet or an email, it's like not me. But if I'm coaching a class, I like that.
Yeah. So what, it's been an interesting year, and it continues to be an interesting year as affiliate owners. And you and I were both in Banff together, and we got to hang out with Daniel Chaffee, who's always got some great insight, and he has 3 really great gyms. What excites you about just the next year, whether it be in your affiliate, in CrossFit in a global sense, and what you see happening? But what's some positive light that excites you?
I like the marketing direction.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know how impactful it will be at this point, but I do like that it's gone back to the way it was when I got really into CrossFit. And I mean, I never really got behind the like removing the Forging Elite Fitness thing to me was like the least logical decision that could be made. So bringing that back, and I think that will start going towards some of the issues I had, because I think that on top of this strength and metcon thing, CrossFit really didn't have a definition of what it was. And I think that even because there was like a competitive side to it, there was people who were like, it was very nebulous as what it was. And I think that I could see more direction being spent on CrossFit is something that enhances your life. It's not a competitive out pursuit. It's like, I do CrossFit. It's the most effective. I tell people it's the most effective way to be able to do other things. There's no other program where you can do maybe 4 hours of fitness a week and maybe go for a run and then go jump in and do the pro division of a High Rocks. But I think if you are an experienced CrossFitter and you just add in some running or don't, you can jump in and do that. There's no other thing that's going to allow you to work out 3 to 5 hours a week and still be able to play rec hockey pretty well in like your 30s and 40s. I think it's the most effective training program. I think that there could be some movement back towards making people understand that, which is good. Because most people you talk to think it's a sport. And I know that there's so much discourse on this sport versus not sport sort of thing. And I'm just hoping it kind of like gets back to being like, hey, these people are just really fit and they work out very little for how fit they are. And that's like, to me, the biggest benefit. It's the most efficient way to get fit. It's not the only way to get fit. I'm not like an evangelicist. There's other ways. Like if you want to get really good at something, you can do some CrossFit, but you should probably do other stuff, but it's going to take you way longer. And the example I've seen recently is like, there's all these sample High Rocks programs out there now, like proven sample High Rocks day. Their sample High Rocks training day is like 4 hours of freaking training. Like it's like a 50-minute run. And then it's like 2 separate metcons. Like, who's doing that? So most of my members have 3 to 4 hours a week minimum or maximum. So, and I just hope that message can be spread, that it's going to be the most effective way to do all of these other things.
It should always, as you say, be a gateway to regularly learn and play new sports.
Exactly. And that's what I tell people. That's like my core thing now, especially as I age, is like, hey, what are you doing outside of the gym?
Yeah. And on that note, 3, 2, 1, time.